The battle for the smallest VR-ready desktop is heating up, and it looks like MSI wants a piece of the action. We've talked pretty extensively about VR-ready laptops, but for those of us who don't always want a display, a fully functional gaming desktop that's small enough to be moved around might be a perfect solution. We like the idea of VR living room gaming, and the Trident, with its small form factor and impressive specs, might be a perfect solution for someone who's looking to replace their console with a gaming PC. You can see the Trident looks like a console, and it's roughly the same size as a first-generation PlayStation 4. The angular design gives it an aggressive edge, and the MSI red and black accents are quite pronounced. There's also a fully controllable LED to display whatever color you want when the build is powered on. The form factor is pretty sweet. We're looking at 13.6 by 9.1 inches and weighing in at just under 7 pounds. It's definitely one of the smallest VR-ready PCs around right now, and would make an excellent replacement for a console as a home entertainment center. It comes with a stand, so you can put it up on its side if that fits better with your living room vibe. The form factor is cool and all, but it's what's under the hood that counts. We have the bare bones model here, meaning there's no RAM, hard drive, or CPU. Let's fix that. This model runs for $600 and gets all the way up to $1,100 for the fully loaded version. It took us a second to find the SSD slots. They're on the other side of the chassis as the motherboard, meaning you have to get all of the plastic of the case off to get them in there. We went with an Intel 600p M.2 SSD, but as you can see here, there's also room for a 2.5-inch SSD or HDD. Pulling off the CPU fan and cooling system was a little trickier, but with a few screws and a bit of gentle prying, we uncovered the CPU socket. We went with an Intel i7 6700K Skylake CPU. Definitely enough brain power for the Trident to do its thing, though since this isn't really an overclocking rig, the cheaper non-K version is probably a better choice. We decided on 16 gigs of itty-bitty DDR4 Ripjaws RAM from g.skill for memory as the last step, and suddenly our bare bones weren't so bare. Finally, we were ready to power the Trident up and see what this tiny little monolith is capable of. This Trident is sporting a shortened desktop GTX 1060 with 6GB of RAM, which is certainly VR capable. It also means running AAA games at high frames per second, even with this small form factor. There's no question that even in this little body, it significantly outperforms current generation consoles in terms of power. One issue with these high-performance compact builds, and one that we've run into with some VR laptops, is overheating and throttling. You get high-end components like this CPU and GPU real close together, and you've got yourself some heat problems. MSI's solution to this issue is to separate those two components using what they call Silent Storm Cooling 2. This essentially means dividing the case into two separate areas in order to increase airflow. We had no issues with heat when testing, and though the fans did occasionally get a bit on the loud side, it was never distracting. As far as ports go, the Trident has pretty much everything you'd expect from a gaming PC, and a bit more besides. The front-facing HDMI port is especially appreciated, no more fumbling around behind the computer for cables when you want to hook up the Vive. Near the HDMI is a USB 3.1 Type-C, alongside two USB 3.1 Type-A ports. Flip it around, and there's another USB 3.1 Type-A, 4 USB 2.0 ports, 2 HDMI, and an Ethernet port for LAN parties. Quite a few options on this little case. We like that. The MSI Trident isn't the most powerful VR machine we've tested, but it isn't trying to be. It's competing with your PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, not a beefy $3,000 rig. The small form factor, good looks, and high performance make it an excellent alternative to traditional consoles, and though it's more expensive, you're getting much more power in a similarly sized box. We're excited to find out just how small VR desktops can get. Thanks for checking out this video, guys, and subscribe below for more.